What is the composition of a black show? In and of itself, that ass so many questions, infinitely bending and eventually breaking rules that define the status quo. Taking looks, drilling down in books, how far does it go? Turn it up and listen while we examine the facts though. Strapped with a heavyweight that make the screens crack, bro. Misunderstanding that last line is exactly why this show should be your pastime. Prime time exacto. Open up your mind time. Team Black got a mean track record of being nice when tracking records on a media device, second to none. The docket is a bottle rocket on course to explode with reasonable mind force plus fun. We just begun discussions over what should be done.
What's going on, folks? My name is Elon James White, and you are now watching a Black Show with basically me. We will be doing this every week, bringing you some of the best and brightest from across the country, discussing various issues around race, politics, and pop culture. It's going to be very, very interesting. And having a show like this being broadcast in a progressive space such as free speech TV is kind of awesome, because a lot of times progressive media, for all of the diversity that it really, really wants, it how do I say this without being rude? It's kinda white as shit. So let's first get this out of the way. Yes, I'm black. Hold the applause. And you might not know this, but I have a lot of opinions about a lot of things, okay? Well, actually, if you follow me on Twitter, you already know that. I tweet a lot. And my opinion is based on reading and research and conversations that I have with people from across the nation and my own experiences. Now, as a black guy, because a black woman's plight, much different from mine, I see conversations around race and politics a little bit differently than, let's say, a white guy, or a Hispanic guy, or an Asian guy. I think you get my point. So when talking about America and the politics and policies and the overall effect those have on the inhabitants of this nation, it's very important to have various types of people in that conversation. Short of me, it can't just be white dudes talking. It doesn't matter how well-meaning or awesome a white guy you might be. You might have seen The Color Purple 35 different times and you know how to do the electric slide and the Cupid shuffle. I don't care if your father marched with King or how much social work you might have participated in. I don't care if you have your African American Studies PhD. None of this excuses not having a multi-layered, multi-experienced conversation when it comes to the bigger picture in our society. You also can't just have one woman, one black, one gay, because that's not true diversity. Even in marginalized spaces, there are still varied thoughts on all sorts of topics. Even as you watch a black show with me, I'm telling you, you better not go around saying, well, Elon said, because you know what? I have thoughts, and there are various other people who have different thoughts. Everyone doesn't agree. Hell, my team doesn't always agree with me. The conversation always has to be wide and inclusive. It can't just be with the people that the gatekeepers allow to get through the door. Well, there's a black guy that I read at supposedly legitimate news source, and he said that. My job here is to entertain and to bring you a perspective that you might not have heard before. And yes, sometimes the opinions and ideas that we have here will match other spaces, and if that's the case, yay! Because even when we agree, it doesn't always mean we agree for the exact same reasons. I'm excited to have this conversation with you, and the folks at This Week in Blackness and the friends of This Week in Blackness are all awesome folks. I think you're about to have a good time. So up next, why don't we do a little politricking?
Black writer expect to be judged more harshly than your white counterparts. A new study from the firm Nexations found that 60 reviewers of legal briefs culled from 5 top law firms rated pieces lower and found more errors if they thought the author was black.
When I first heard that reviewers will find more spelling errors in your writing if they think that you're black, I was like, how can they tell? Is it because you signed it with a slave X?
I realized they weren't talking about me because when I was a lawyer and I was writing legal briefs, my spelling was perfect.
White people mistakes be like, oops, I left out a comma. Black people mistakes be like, a comma.
Now, this is one of those times where it might be good old-fashioned confirmation bias. There's a chance. And of course, the study was a very small sample, so we have to invoke the all-wonderful, all-knowing, not all white people in this case.
I think at the bottom line, pretty
Our historical precedent, we literally go out of our way to make sure that there are issues and problems with black people that we don't see in other default Americans. unfortunately.
After more than 9 alleged break-ins in Fairview Township, Pennsylvania over a 2-month period with no arrests, a group of concerned individuals decided to step up to help. That group? The KKK. But don't worry, they see themselves just as any old neighborhood watch group. They've even passed out flyers to let people know of their new efforts. One explains Fairview Township residents that they can sleep soundly knowing that the KKK is wide awake.
They say it's just like any neighborhood watch, except for it's a neighborhood watch run by white supremacists who would rather burn a cross on your lawn than make sure that your lawn is well manicured.
I, for one, am happy that the Ku Klux Klan is stepping in to provide emotional support for Philadelphia, for Pennsylvania police, because being around all those mean black and brown people must make them very tense. The fact that they probably don't like police for a variety of mysterious reasons that the police can't even begin to fathom. All they're doing is their jobs, and all black and brown people do are glower at them and get into trouble. So you know what? I applaud the KKK for offering a shoulder to cry on for Pennsylvania police.
This is apparently going to show the softer side of the KKK. They're using downy fabric softener on their sheets. This is all good stuff, I guess, but I would like to see a neighborhood watch group to watch the KKK, because I think the bigger problem here isn't your house got broken into, it's the KKK.
When I first heard the KKK formed a neighborhood watch to compliment police in a Pennsylvania town, I was like, this is more like neighborhood watch out.
First thing that comes to my mind is, what would they be watching in the neighborhood that would constitute intervening, and how might they intervene, considering that they're the Ku Klux Klan?
They really put the hood in neighborhood watch.
I recently got to sit down with Davey D, a Bay Area legend, to discuss independent media, journalism, and how that affects the community and how it ties into hip-hop as a whole for the digital magazine Valid, which we produce at This Week in Blackness. It'll be available soon, so be ready for it. Check out this snippet right now.
Why did you go into broadcasting?
I got into broadcasting out of necessity. I was DJing, and I wanted to find a way to promote some of the parties that I was doing, and I fell into the campus radio station up at UC Berkeley called Calix, and it was from there that there was a need, because of my expertise in music, to kind of join the staff, at least the third world staff. And to make a long story short, I was trained and mentored by some elders and started doing radio there, primarily to fulfill my creative endeavors, as a mixer, as a DJ, and then of course, I've always been a political person, so the politics got woven in to the musical aspirations I have. And
you say, of course, sir, as if automatically being musical and political are automatically connected.
Well, I think most people know me for either one, and sometimes they don't put the two together. So some people know me just for my political work, other people know me for my music work, but they've always gone hand in hand, and I think I come from that school of thought where culture and politics are always fused together. They're not separate entities. And I think you know that from being a comedian. It gets, just be funny and let us do the political stuff, right, versus, well, you have political understanding and ideas, you're in your community, and you can speak to your own reality and by extent, the realities of the people that you're around. And so I think it's the same way for me, and it's been that way, but because I've done this commercially for a number of years, when you start getting into the Clear Channels and some of those other institutions, they're very, very clear that they want to separate the things. I remember having an old boss say, decide if you want to be funny or do you want to be serious? Do you want to do this political stuff or you want to, kind of get with the program, which right, at the end of the day amounts to being buffoonish, and not realizing that black folks, first of all, can take in an array of different perspectives and emotions, and that you can be funny and serious at the same time. There's a long history of that in our community.
That's how we tell stories.
From the Dick Gregorys to the Richard Pryors, to the Mary Barakas, even Malcolm X and others always lace their political perspective with a dialogue that the masses would find entertaining at the very least, and humorous at other times.
But okay, you said that you used this for to basically promote your DJing and stuff like that, and you had some political ideas. When did you decide I mean, well, I guess not win, but like, why media? Why this particular platform to tell your stories? You could have done various other things. Why this?
I did both. I was writing too. I started a newsletter back in '86. The newsletter was very popular. In fact, the newsletter is what opened doors. I was doing columns for, probably some of the first hip hop columns in the country. Writing for a Bay Area music magazine. We had Davey D's. The Davey D Beat Report, then it became the Bay Area Beat Report. So I was always writing and chronicling what I'm doing. You could easily do an interview just on the writing, minus the radio. But
when I say media, I mean like I'm combining the both of them. Like the idea of like because you specifically decided to take this particular route. Like,
well, the thing is that media is a form of communication,
right?
And there are various ways in which the community or people you want to reach take in information. So for me, instead of writing a flyer and say, listen to my show, I wrote about the things I was playing and I put charts out and all that other stuff, which was, informational, that was useful for people. At the same time, I had this platform of being on the air where you reach, 10 times the amount of people that you can when you're just writing something.
Right.
So there's a whole other responsibility and approach towards that. And marrying the two together was something that I was able to do early on. But they're also separate, because they've allowed me to go through certain doors at different times. So my writing has taken me down a number of paths. My radio work has taken me down a number of paths. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes in many people's minds, they separate it. They go, oh, you're a journalist, so, what do you write for? Well, I'm also broadcasting, and they don't always see broadcasters as a journalist. They see broadcasting as something different, like you're just reading script at the very least, or you're just being funny on the air.
And by the way, just for my own edification, how do you define journalist?
I think a journalist is somebody who gives information, views, and points of views from the community. So I reflect the sentiments and the political aspirations and trials and tribulations of your community. So as a journalist, I'm reporting that, I'm bringing that to light. As a commentator, there's a separation between that. I give my own opinions, but a lot of times I think I spend the bulk of my time creating a platform to bring forth information that is often marginalized and overlooked by the mainstream for a variety of reasons.
Up next, I'm going to go hit the This Week in Blackness media desk and sit down with the rest of Team Blackness, and we're going to do a little segment that we like to call Quick Hits. Check it out.
What's going on, folks? It's Elon James White, and this is Quick Hits, brought to you by Twib Prime. I am joined by Captain Lieutenant General Professor. On occasion, he is some sort of doctor. He's the host of Sports Ball. We have Aaron Rand Freeman, sir.
I'm on television.
Seriously, that's what you brought to the table?
That's what am I supposed to do? At some point, I just want to say it. I'm not going to jump up and down, but at some point I have to say I'm on television because it's kind of cool. And now I can be calm. It's a pleasure to be here on the show with you, Elon, to contribute to your news program as best I can.
This is the problem with black people. Also with me is senior legal analyst for This Week in Blackness Media, the founder of the Angry Black Lady Chronicles, and basically a problem. We have Imani Gandhi, ma'am.
Hi, Mom. I'm on TV.
Really, guys? Is this happening? Is this actually happening right now?
It's a pleasure to be on the program with you, sir. How are you?
I am not amused by you Negroes. Every week we do a roundup of news stories called Quick Hits, and that's what we're going to hit you with right now. Imani, I need some stories in my life. What is on the Quick Hits docket?
Well, I'm not sure if you're going to want this, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
What if then I quit?
But it's your show.
Oh.
It's your show. It's a black show with Elon James White. You can't quit.
First of all, I can quit at any point in time. I am grown.
Then it would be the Angry Black Lady show.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm in line after her. So we got stuff. You got guys. You got depth on the bench, Elon.
God,
so
what? Can I get a story?
So the TSA ejected a mute disabled woman from a flight because she couldn't speak. And yes, since this is the black show, well, not the black show, a black show. This young woman was black, or probably still is black as far as I know. Her name is Heidi Wright. She's a disabled woman unable to speak. She was traveling with her sister and was barred from getting on a plane from Los Angeles to Phoenix. Despite showing a driver's license, which had expired several years ago because an injury and a series of strokes had left her unable to drive, the TSA agents would not let her board the plane unless she spoke. Because she couldn't speak, she was viewed as a terrorist and had to take a 375-mile bus ride instead. So that happened.
Wait, so if you don't talk, you're a terrorist?
Well, I guess if you don't talk and you were requested to talk, even though you don't have the capability of talking, I mean, good job, TSA. It's bad enough that you felt up my balls the last 3 times that I had to fly. Now you're sitting there not letting me. It's one thing to molest me. It's another thing just to completely be rude to people who are just trying to fly and just seriously, would they not let her write it down? Like, what's the?
Well, apparently she had called ahead to find out what she needed to bring because her driver's license was expired.
She called?
Yeah. Well, she didn't call. Her sister called. Okay. She was traveling with her sister. Her sister was helping her make these arrangements to take this flight. They called ahead, talked to some agents. They told her that they needed to bring specific DMV papers because her license was expired. She brought all of the papers she was required to bring, showed them to the TSA agents, and rather than review her papers and let her go, they harassed her until both women were in tears because they were demanding that this woman speak. Her sister kept saying she can't speak, she had a stroke, and they kept saying you need to speak, and her sister says, well, what are we going to ask for a miracle here? She hasn't spoken since her stroke. And in the end, they wouldn't let her board the flight, and they both ended up having to take a nearly 400-mile bus ride.
From the beginning of the story, I thought that you were saying that she was on the plane by herself, and then they were asking her. You mean to tell me there was someone next to her vouching for her muteness?
Yes, her sister.
Literally just like, oh, she had a stroke, she's mute, so don't worry about it. And they didn't believe her?
Nope. They were 2 black women trying to make it in the world. One of them can't speak. I don't
believe that's really...
2 black women just trying to get to that big.
Apparently that's what. Really? Are you about to Jefferson and stuff? Deluxe apartment in the sky high?
Yeah, you know.
Ma'am. I said, ma'am.
The sky high. The sky's high. They were in a plane. I think it's relevant.
That's a terrible story. You're a horrible news correspondent. What else do we have?
Let's talk about the Toronto police, which apparently, and I read this and I was really surprised, the Toronto police has had a policy of carding people on the street, carding minority youth, taking down their information, even if they're not suspected of a crime, taking down their information, personal information, birthdays, whatever the equivalent of a social security number in Canada is, and then storing it in a database for future investigative purposes.
They're leaning so hard on being Canada. If they tried to do that in New York, that would get caught within 4 days. In Canada, how long is it? You said it's been a long-standing policy?
That's been a long-standing policy that now that they're starting to look at, and they're starting to restrict officers' authority to stop and document people on the street. So they're trying to go from this policy that Canada has, which is stop and frisk and also take down all your personal information and store it in a database, and reduce it down to just stop and frisk. So in a way, New York is sort of ahead of the curve.
And I want to argue, Aaron, you said that if this was New York, it would have been figured out in 4 days. I'm going to argue that stop and frisk and the rest of the nonsense was their way of creating a database.
Right, but this is actually an actual, like, they would stop and frisk you in Canada.
Right, no, and take your information. I understand what you're saying, but, like, Aaron was saying that, like, in New York, this would have been called out and, like, been a problem. I'm like, actually, stop and frisk and the actions that they use with that and the arrest and all that type of stuff. Lots of people get arrested or put in the system, and they actually didn't do anything.
That's true.
They've been building a database in New York for quite some time. In Canada, at least they had the nerve to say, listen, we're making a database. Here's the thing. And by the way, I am going to get punched in the face by Canadians. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, they're all going to punch you in the face at the same time.
Yeah. I just realized I'm going to get punched in the face, and I'd prefer not be punched in the face by Canadians. But yeah, that's. I mean, that's ridiculous. And at the same time, I like the fact that they were getting. It was like people were just like, well, this is odd.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess we'll go along with this. Like, how big was the database? Did they say how many years this has been running?
Hang on. Yeah, I'm not sure how many years it's been running, but they have part of the new policy is that they're going to purge all of the information that has been lying and sitting in this database prior to July 2013. That's what they say.
Yes, I know what they said. I'm telling you, they're not doing that. No one throws away data. Like, wow, we have all this information and data. You know what? It was gotten illegally. We should throw this away. Okay, we threw it away, and now we just will have it in a secret box called Operation Shouldn't Be You in Canada. like I don't know. They're not throwing it away.
The NYPD's brand took to Twitter to try and get people to post their friendly pictures of people with New York City cops. And that's when they realized that social media may not be as easy as it seems. In addition to those tourist photos with a cop on a horse that everyone loves, their timeline was filled with images of police brutality, unnecessary roughness, and racial profiling.
Who could have predicted this response? Basically, every single person except the Twitter intern at the NYPD.
Predictably, Twitter users started posting pictures of police brutality. It's pretty clear to me that the NYPD has no idea what social media is and might want to hire someone to teach them.
I'd like to take this opportunity to let the NYPD know that I'm registered to do business with the city and I do social media consulting. Seems like you need that.
The NYPD, I can't even take it seriously.
The My NYPD hashtag is the worst idea since Ask R. Kelly.
I'm sorry, I had to interrupt because this My NYPD thing was magically idiotic. I mean, reprehensibly tone deaf. I can't imagine how someone thought this social media fail was going to be okay. Nope. The NYPD, one of the nation's most visible brands in policing and police brutality, thought they could just jump on social media and say, hey, come on, let's get some PR love here. Are you It was like the NYPD forgot that they had been dragged through social media on numerous occasions around stop and frisk just recently. This type of nonsense only can mean one of two things. One, they have a complete lack of understanding of how social media works, or two, they have a complete lack of understanding of how they are perceived by the people that they police. NYPD's policy of stop and frisk has been critiqued across the nation. Just recently, I reached out to activist and rapper Jasiri X to put together a project specifically to reach out and discuss this horrible issue. We were joined by the man whose voice you heard start this entire show, and his beats have been all throughout it, Willie Evans Jr., and basically all your favorite people on social media to come together to put together a project called the 10 Frisk Commandments. And as we say goodnight, we're going to play out on that particular video. Be sure to throw any feedback that you have at us at ablackshow@freespeech.org. That is ablackshow@freespeech.org. And make sure you follow us on social media. I'm at Elon James, and follow Twib Nation. Thank you guys for watching. Have a pleasant evening.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
It's the 10 Frisk Commandments.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Hands up if you ever seen a handcuff.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Hands up if you ever seen a handcuff. My little man touched me in the heart. We was at the park. Watch him run the rock. Time to go cause it's getting dark. Last play of the game, a hard foul fight starts. I'm peeling out cause I don't want my son to see the night sparks. Before I get 5 feet, the blue lights behind me. Pulling over cool as ice till something reminds me my little man is in the car. That something was him asking me if I was gonna be taken away by them. I laughed like I wasn't concerned, but in the back of my mind I remembered the time that I made a U-turn and got pulled over for suspicious action. My white friend got pulled out so they could ask him what he was doing with me. That incident was one among many. I wanna tell my son that that's silly. He's only 3 and I'm not even sure it's wise or fair to have to teach him to survive before he's 5. That night I read him 10 Commandments and I nearly cried, cause it wasn't the Bible, it was from Jasiri's rhymes.
6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9.
I've never known a time when I wasn't really warned about how blackness is perceived with some malice and some scorn. But mama, I'm sure I didn't do nothing wrong, and then she said that's not the point, I just don't wanna see you gone. Growing up, it was me who was questioning the fact that being black, that I was always under some sort of attack. It was the bad kids, the thuggish ones, I will be okay. And that's the same used on Kamani Gray. 2013, how is not being white still a crime, and the innocent still get stopped and frisked all the time. I'm American, I bet that came with some sort of rights that was undeniable, whether my skin was dark or light. So much fright, abuse of authoritative might, such a sight to see young folks scared to even fight for their rights. Guess what? We need more voices who are white. Let's unite to put this to bed and say goodnight. 10 Frisk Commandments.
6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
my rear view, lights on, siren sound, pull over, yeah, I hear you. I guess you see 4 black men in an SUV, so you expect we sling. I felt like Ice-T, it was 6 in the morning. He asked where we going, we rollin' to a performance. He asked was I drinking, I told him I don't indulge in the spirits. But he wasn't trying to hear it, he pulled out the breathalyzer like I was the best of liars. But my man Rod D had the Canon 5D. Commandment number 9, yeah, we filmed the police, and because we were recording, we got off with a warning. I asked why he pulled us over with a surprise. He said my lights were off, but it was past sunrise. And I was thankful because none of us died. Stopped and frisked and then why, but at least we survived by the 10 frisk commandments.
6, 7,